So up until last summer, I was one of the non-Trump supporters. I don't want to use the word hate; it's bad, but the ones that don't support him they seem hateful. You know what? I don't think I was hateful, but I didn't care too much for Trump supporters because my main source of news was CNN, and that's that's where the truth fell off the wagon. So, and now I go there if I'm feeling down and I want something to laugh at. I'll go to watch CNN because when you know what they're up to, it's actually funny. It's sad, but it's funny to see the characters, and they all should be getting acting awards because they're pretty good actors. I give them that. Like, they're worth watching because they're good actors. So if you just want to watch something funny and stupid, I suggest watch CNN because there's some pretty good actors, but some of the topics, like I just noticed today. They had on this morning. I turned it on because I thought, I'd get a little jump to my day, and there was Mr. Swalwell, who is giving CNN an update on all the security around the Washington Capitol. And if anybody's followed the other news, which means anything but mainstream media, you know that Swalwell had been sleeping with a Chinese spy and didn't know it until the FBI told him and warned him. And then she escaped the country. So I'm thinking there's a lot wrong with that story, but we don't see it in mainstream media. But this guy is on the Intelligence Committee, and he's sleeping with a Chinese spy, and the FBI has to tell him, buddy, you're sleeping with the enemy. And then, of course, she leaves the country. FBI didn't stop her from leaving the country. They knew her. Obviously, they were surveilling because they told him, right, that you're sleeping with the enemy. But it gets even more moronic because what does Nancy Pelosi do? She puts him on, he's an impeachment manager. He's sleeping with the Chinese spy, and the FBI has to let him know, this is the guy you want on your intelligence committee. And it makes sense that he'd be on the impeachment team because, it's a farce. He's a farce. No one should be surprised by that. Anyways, I thought we'd get to the, it's Trump administration just put out, as of January 2021, they put out just a list of their accomplishments to date. What they do in the 4 years they were in power, and everybody should want to know what they did, right? So here we go. First one, unprecedented economic boom. Delivered a future of greater promise and opportunity for citizens of all background. So the unemployment rates for African American, Hispanic American, Asian Americans, all these hyphenated Americans, veterans, individuals with disabilities, and those without a high school diploma all reached record lows. So unemployment rate amongst all those means a lot of these people had jobs now. Unemployment rate for women hit the lowest rate in nearly 70 years. Don't hear women touting that, do you? The women's rights movement touting that? Like, if that was somebody else's administration and the unemployment for women hit its lowest rate in 70 years, I think you'd want to be saying that, like, great, but you don't hear that. Brought jobs, factories, and industries back to the USA. You know all about that. You put tariffs in place, threaten these guys. You want to build your cars overseas or China or in Mexico? We'll put tariffs on them. You can sell them here, but you're not going to sell them any because the tariffs would be so damn high. So, yeah, he brought all these manufacturing jobs. They're bringing those factories back. So hit record stock market numbers and record 401ks. The Dow closed above 20,000 for the first time in 2017 and topped 30,000 in 2020. Any other president in power would be taking credit for that, so you might as well give it to Trump, whether you think it was Obama's work in the 8 years before that somehow magically created that. It's possible, so take it as it is. Rebuilding and investing in rural America. Tax relief for the middle class. Passed $3.2 trillion in historic tax relief and reform the tax code. So more than 6 million American workers receive wage increases, bonus, increased benefits thanks to the tax cut. Typical family of four earning $75,000 received an income tax cut of more than $2,000, slashing their tax bill in half. So Americans now have more money in their pockets. Fair and reciprocal trade. Redid the trade deals. USMC historic support for American farmers. unleashed America's oil and natural gas potential, and now they have been oil and gas independent, energy independent from any imports. Pretty sure that's a good thing. You don't have to make your decisions based on whether you're going to get cut off from those imports. If you got it yourself, there's, you know what, life-saving response to the China virus. When you know what, we got proof. We even seen it here in Canada. There was one of the health officials, and it was on. I wrote it down. I've got a copy of it somewhere. It was Global or CBC or something. They were talking about it was the 5 things more likely to kill you than a coronavirus in Canada, right? That was back when Trump was locking things up, and they're going, it's not so bad. So that's a whole thing. Repurposed domestic manufacturing facilities, and so issued unprecedented reforms that dramatically lowered the price of prescription drugs. Launched an initiative to stop global freeloading in the drug market and finalized a rule to allow the importation of prescription drugs from Canada because they're cheaper here. Drug companies don't like that. Yeah, so there he is again, promoting research and innovation in healthcare, ensure that Americans, patients have access to the best treatment in the world, not just if you have the right money. Colossal rebuilding of the military. Boom, there's a whole bunch of pages on that. Serving and protecting our veterans, a whole bunch of stuff on that. Making communities safer. You got to ask yourself, is it, where all the crime in these cities, why do they tend to be democratic? And I'm only saying that because that's where the crime is. So where's the crime? Those are stats. And you know what? It's a shame that it's so party-like. I think the important thing for the U.S. is they want to get off on this party divide crap that seems to work its way into their politics, that you can't be somebody, you can't have common ground in the middle. You're all Americans. You all got something in common. Don't let the media tell you you don't. They don't know shit. Just watch them. Once you understand what their initiative is, just watch them. They can't even show me where the media has mentioned any of these good things, and there's a lot of good things in here that Trump's administration, not just Trump, his administration, he's not, there's more than just one guy running the country. Like, I don't know. They really hate him. I know he must have something on them. That's the only thing. Why would you hate somebody so bad to put the social media against them, to put any resources you have against them? There must be some reason. Not, you know what, you didn't like him before he got into politics, and that's okay. People are entitled to their opinion, but once he becomes a president, it's like, wow, they lost their shit. In the early stages, I always thought Trump was a bit of a, he loves himself, and he, I watched CNN News religiously in the early days, and I watched that whole impeachment thing, and I was basically watching CNN, which they were on the one side and everything else, so you didn't hear. Then every time you listen to them, they would, Fox News this, Fox News that. So I thought, well, I'm going to look for myself and look at some of this Fox News and see what they're saying. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that they weren't these crazies that CNN was making them out to be. Mm-hmm. They actually, when you sit and watch their news and you watch CNN, theirs is more factual. They don't get too personal about it. And I watched CNN. I was watching something the other day, and one of the reporters was sobbing at Joe Biden hugging some young child, a disabled child. Oh, he's such a passionate guy. Well, what's that got to do with anything? He's also a criminal. Why aren't you showing anything about that? Mm-hmm. Why aren't you investigating any of the, the stuff that's come out about, first of all, the Russian mayor's wife, $3.5 million. There's a bank transfer. It's not somebody's opinion. Apparently there's a bank transfer that proves it. So,
and who's the business partner of Hunter's that came out recently? What's his name?
Bob Alinsky.
Yeah.
Bob Alinsky's got 3 cell phones. He was head of, they made him head of one of these companies, these investment companies they set up in China. And some of the things he was saying, like Hunter Biden was treating that like his own private slush fund that he can just go and buy and do things with. And now that I go back, I watched a good part of the impeachment process. So now when I go back and I look at it and I think about what happened in there, that phone call that it all started over, where, you know what, there's military aid coming to Ukraine. Trump's on a phone call with the president. And he's saying, you know what, that's good. But, you know, there's something, I need you to do me a favor, though. And that's where the other media just went crazy. So his favor was, you need to check into this Hunter Biden thing and this Burisma and this corruption, which if you're a new president coming in, if that was Biden coming in and there was, you know, Trump and Donald Jr. had this job on this board that he had no experience for, pretty sure Biden would want to investigate that. Mm-hmm. And he would probably have no problem investigating it. But because the tables are turned, you know, so they had to turn it. So now when I look back and going, I can see Donald Trump, the character Donald Trump, saying, yeah, I'm going to give you the money, but you need to do me a favor, though. So it's not saying you're not going to get the money unless you do this favor, saying, yeah, we're giving you money, but you got to do me a favor. You got to look into this. And you know what? You're the new president. The other one was corrupt, and there's been a lot of corruption. So you need to look into that and find out, because this Hunter Biden thing stinks to high heaven, which when you think about it, I didn't have the information about Hunter Biden then that I have now, that, you know, he got kicked out of the army. He was a drug addict, never had any kind of business or job or anything going for him. Mm-hmm. A guy that had really nothing going for him, and now all of a sudden he's getting $183,000 a month from this Burisma, this energy company, and then now we find out. Like, I remember Trump saying, China, you know, they should investigate too. Now I know why he said that, because you look at all the stuff that's going on in China. The Ukraine was a joke compared to what's going on in China. The Bidens selling out to China. That's just insane. Mm-hmm. And now you've got Bobulinski coming out. So, and he's got 3 cell phones with all the emails and everything. So, you know, you can do what you want, but the facts are the facts. It's like our old Prime Minister Chrétien used to say, the proof is the proof. And when you have the proof, that's the proof. Not eloquent, but to the point, right? The proof is the proof. Not your opinion, not my opinion. The proof is going to tell us what the real story is. So, You know what else they don't show you? Anything negative about Biden.
Oh, I know. Twitter, for example.
Now, Biden lied. Joe Biden lied about his record in college, university, or whatever, that he was in the top of his class where everything was. Apparently, he was in the bottom of his class.
I believe
Wasn't
it.
the brightest of guys.
Sleepy Joe.
Yeah. And when you go back and you look at his voting on, you know what,
he's more racist than Trump. If you look at his history.
Look at the one where he's talking to some black man and he's saying, if you vote for Trump, well, then you ain't black.
Yeah.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
What you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
I kind of feel sorry, and I wish somebody would have, you know, opened my eyes a lot sooner to what's going on. I kind of find out by accident how the media portrays stories, and you know, it's rampant here in Canada. I've caught global news on Rudy Giuliani did a whole 1-hour beautiful news conference about the corruption and the voting and all the affidavits and whole lot of technical information, but he made a couple little, what I would call, goofs in the interview. His spray and hair color or whatever he had going on, and you know what? I'm sure he's not the only one in the world, because if they make spray hair color, there's more than one just guy they're making it for. So judge him if you want about that, but it was running down his face at the end because he was sweating and he was very passionate about what he was saying. So he was sweating at the end. And somewhere in the middle of the press conference, he made a reference to a movie called My Cousin Vinny. And he actually used the voice the actor was using because he was making a point that the people watching the voting were so far away you couldn't see what was going on. You might as well not have been there because the distance was so far you couldn't monitor anything. Anyways, and he was referring to the old lady in the movie that saw, nice old lady, she saw this guy who's being charged at night from a distance, and he holds his 2 fingers up, but he uses the guy's voice. How many fingers am I holding up? So he uses that Jersey voice, and she says 3, and he's holding up 2, and he goes, there, you see, you're too far away to see anything. So he was making that point, but that whole 1 hour was just some riveting information about voter fraud and these machines and what people were doing, what they were doing to these scrutiners. And Global, they put about a 2-minute clip out, and guess what was on that 2-minute clip? You know what? They looked at it and said, what the public really needs to know from this is that something was running down his face. They even, the beautiful part is, to emphasize it, at the end of the clip, they zoomed in on his face to make sure you didn't miss the stuff running down the side of it. They zoomed in, like that wasn't in the original video that was posted. They actually zoomed in to show it. So the only thing that Global News thought was important for you to see out of that whole 1 hour press conference, right? Because the media is going to tell you what's going on. If you don't have time to watch it, the media, don't worry, the media is covering it. You're going to see it after. So here's what the media got out of that. My cousin Vinny. And zoom in on the sweat. That's all they thought that you, the public, really should see from that. So you decide who's telling you the truth, people. Come on.
I guess the best way to describe this is when we began our representation of the president, we certainly were confronted with a very anomalous set of results. The president way ahead on election night, 700,000 or 800,000 in Pennsylvania. Somehow he lost Pennsylvania. We have statisticians willing to testify that that's almost statistically impossible to have happened in the period of time that it happened. But of course, that's just speculation. As we started investigating, both our investigations and the very patriotic and brave American citizens that have come forward are extraordinary. Extraordinary number of people, extraordinary number of witnesses. And what emerged very quickly is there's not a singular voter fraud in one state. This pattern repeats itself in a number of states. Almost exactly the same pattern, which to any experienced investigator, prosecutor, would suggest that there was a plan from a centralized place to execute these various acts of voter fraud, specifically focused on big cities, and specifically focused on, as you would imagine, big cities controlled by Democrats, and particularly focused on big cities that have a long history of corruption. The number of voter fraud cases in Philadelphia could fill a library. Just a few weeks ago, there was a conviction for voter fraud, and one 2 weeks before that. And I've often said, I guess sarcastically, but it's true, the only surprise I would have found in this is if Philadelphia hadn't cheated in this election.
Thanks for listening, guys.